You might be having a glorious morning, but I don't think Humza Yousaf is. You were on Twitter yesterday being very, I thought, generous of spirit about his demise, because an awful lot of people think that, yes, the First Minister's job is difficult, but he kind of kiboshed himself. He got obsessed with culture wars, he got obsessed with gender identity, he got obsessed with the kinds of things, you know, like the bottle return scheme. You know, he forgot what the SNP was there for, which was to try and get independence for Scotland. What have you made of the demise of the SNP? It's been spectacular.
Well, they managed to keep the lid on their problems over so many years. I think you are well aware of the really significant problems in the Scottish education system. The fact that our health service is getting worse and worse, our economy is flatlining. They can't even build ferries to get people across the water on the west coast for important operations or for work, and that has been controlled by the SNP during the Nicola Sturgeon years. And of course, when she left, all came out from under the surface. And I'm afraid Humza, a decent guy that he is, just wasn't able to manage the change, the really sharp reset that was required. And he made a big error last week in the way that he handled the dismissal of the Greens. I mean, he's out the door, unfortunately.
He is. I mean, I wonder, and I know you know plenty about the old Machiavellian moves behind the scenes, but Stephen Flynn, it seems to me, is the man with his hands slightly covered in blood here, because he apparently was the guy who went up to Humza Yousaf and said, you know, this net zero stuff is not all it's cracked up to be. I've got a big Aberdeen constituency full of people that work in the oil and gas industry. Why don't you kibosh net zero and you'll be fine? And of course, he went and did that, and that was the beginning of the end.
Well, I think we can see the hands of some people who maybe believe their own publicity a little bit too much over the last few days, because you know, I think there was an effort, as you say, to get tough with the Greens, which has completely backfired. It would have been possible, I think, to put them in a very different corner. And now I think we see this move to bring back John Swinney, which is, I think, is an attempt. I can recall similar attempts in the past in other parties, an attempt to buy time so that people like Mr. Flynn and others who might want to become the leader at some stage and a bit more popular can have a little bit more time to prepare for that. And I'm not sure this is going to work for the SNP at all.
I don't think so. I mean, the main beneficiary, it looks like, is going to be the Labour Party, isn't it?
Well, I think it does perhaps depend a little bit on who they choose and the direction that they choose. It also depends, though, on what the opposition parties do in response. I think whatever happens, a new leader will probably cause some difficulties for the Scottish Tories, who are in a bad enough place already. But I think a leader from rural Scotland might give them a few more difficulties than they've had before. But for Scottish Labour, there's still this big issue of articulating a vision for Scotland, being seen to be the party that's more ambitious for Scotland, and therefore reflecting the politics of the 21st century when we've got our own parliament and people wanted to work and work well. I think Anna Starwar's made a great start on that road, but I think we've still got a little bit to go ahead of the Scottish Parliament elections in 2 years' time.
Well, that is the problem, isn't it? I mean, I remember back in the day when you were First Minister, you know, the world seemed a much simpler place. You probably told me it wasn't, but, you know, the political landscape didn't seem quite so nutty. I mean, you know, everywhere you look now, you've got the Conservative Prime Minister who wasn't elected as leader. In fact, he lost the election. You had Humza Yousaf, who was appointed effectively before the police inquiry started in Scotland. You got Vaughan Gethin, who's been handed the sort of the power in Wales by Mark Drakeford. You know, we're literally sitting here wondering, in Ireland, you've got, you know, Sinn Féin running a parliament that doesn't then want to be there. It's a very odd place that Britain finds itself in, isn't it?
Well, it was very interesting. A bit like you, I think. I do like to talk to members of the public rather than politicians. And on my way back, on my way to the train station yesterday from a meeting I chaired in Edinburgh yesterday morning, just after the announcement, I met a taxi driver and a railway worker, a man and a woman, and they both said to me, we need a clear out, we need an election, not just another change. And it was really interesting that was the gut reaction from the public, that we've had enough of all this shenanigans and it's time to have a fresh start with a new group of people and give us the power to choose them. And I think that will be the overwhelming feeling of people in Scotland this morning.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. Jack, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Jack McConnell,